Hello, everyone, and welcome to FAM Sports Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 2 1AA preview. Week 1 was very interesting. Obviously, some rust and some sloppiness, but it was great to see competitive football again.
Yeah, man. I mean, the issue is when you only have 2 weeks of practice, you're naturally just going to be very rusty to start the season. But I was just glad to be able to see football again, and that was kind of I think it was just surprising the fact that we had football in March. I think that was like we're playing down in the South, the spring ball going on, so it was just good to see everyone on the field and good to see football back.
Yeah, and I want to welcome all our fans. This is our Week 2 Section 1AA preview show, and we're going to just preview some of the top games of the week, and then pick all the games at the end. I know there was questions out there about doing a reaction show, and that's why follow us on Twitter, because that's where we give our brief reactions to all the games that happen over the weekend, and that's where you can kind of see that kind of stuff. But this is strictly just for previewing the show. I mean, we'll talk a little bit of games, but not really a reaction show. So let's dive into it, Mars. Similar structure like we did last week, so for those watching us, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, give the thumbs up, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We're trying to give you the best coverage we can with the resources that we have. So definitely check it out, everybody. But let's start off right at the bat, Mars. The game's on slate for Week 2. We got Port Chester at White Plains. That's Thursday, so that's an early game this week. Yonkers Forest at New Rochelle on a Friday. Suffern at Scarsdale on Friday. Fox Lane at John J. East Fishkill Friday. Arlington at Carmel on Saturday. RCK at North Rockland Saturday. And unfortunately, Yonkers Brave and Mamaroneck is canceled due to COVID, and we ran into that issue for a few games this Week 1 as well. I know Mamaroneck is trying to get another opponent, but I just wanted to make that clear. From what we have so far, we're not sure who Mamaroneck will be playing if they pick up somebody. But Mars, let's go into our focus games, which is, we'll select a couple of the games out of this list to dive into and give our, some details on it and break down. But let's start with the first one, Thursday. Port Chester 0-1 at White Plains, who also is 0-1. Port Chester lost to Scarsdale 25-0. White Plains lost to Mamaroneck 33-20. And, this matchup, White Plains is actually 3-1 versus Port Chester, and they've won 2 straight, including a win in 2019 where they won 40-26. So interesting dynamic. Let's start with Port Chester, though, Mars. Offensively, they run the option, and I think they really, you definitely could see the rust when Port Chester played Scarsdale. Scarsdale's been running the option forever. Port Chester just started it. You definitely saw the difference, and the biggest thing to me was the negative plays. That's what really hurt them, and I really thought that they got a bunch of penetration up front. So I'm expecting Port Chester's offensive line to continue to improve. Guys like Martinez, Alvarado, Escobar, Leyva, Aguilar, I know who got in there. I'm expecting the front to play better than they did against Scarsdale, because there were too many times where there was just too much penetration, and it caused some issues. And, I want to see those running backs on the edge make some plays in space, guys like Colin Taylor and Jordan. But to me, the option always starts with the quarterback, Roman, right? So he needs to, as he gets more comfortable in the offense, the reads will come a little bit slower. Everything looked way too fast for this Port Chester offense. They struggled offensively. I'm expecting them to grow in this second week, but we're going to see, right? So that's definitely the big thing up front, is try to get into space. Don't let too much penetration, too many negative plays. That's what really puts the option offense back on its heels, because now you have to go into passing mode, which that's not what really you are, right? So you want to run and get yards. Defensively, Mars, last week they played option football. This week they're going to play a completely different group. Up-tempo, spread, throwing the ball around, getting the quarterback on the run out of the spread looks. So definitely going to be different. White Plains obviously has a bunch of weapons, and we'll get into that with Englert, Pierre, LaSalle. So it's going to be big on the defensive backs like Roman, Jordan. Can they stick with these guys in coverage? White Plains hit some big plays down the field. And they got to get pressure up front. They really do. They're a passing team, spread team. You got to keep the quarterback in the pocket, and you got to get pressure on them. So I'm looking at a guy like Escobar, who had a sack last week, and others to get penetration up front. They need to rely, Port Chester, on that front four defensively and the offensive line, because that's where the strength is. So I'm interested, Mars. What are your thoughts on Port Chester?
And when we look at Port Chester, like you said, I think you can definitely tell there is a clear difference between what they were doing versus what Scarsdale is doing. What Scarsdale has been kind of using the same option system for a very long time, and they feel like it's very norm to them. And Portchester's kind of new to it, so you can see that there's definitely some growing pains when it comes to that. The differences between there. But when you look at the issues from last week, the negative plays really hurt them, and they have to make sure they fix upon those. I mean, when you're running the option style of offense, having negative plays really cripples your momentum. I mean, just because you don't want to be a team that throws. So if you are going to throw, it has to be very short.
Yeah, you want to throw at a point of strength, right? Yeah. So when it's 2nd and 5, third and short,
it's more manageable. I mean, granted, in high school football, it's always better to be manageable, but I just think in this scheme of offense, it'd be better for your sake to not be put into a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 scenario. But when it comes to defensively, like you said, it's a completely different bag now. I mean, you still need to be disciplined for sure, but there's definitely a different criteria when you look at versing White Plains versus going against Scarsdale. I mean, Scarsdale, you have to be disciplined or else you're going to be losing out on a lot of big plays. I think it's just when it comes to White Plains, it's can you keep up with the speed? Yeah. And when it comes to one player versus another player, who is faster, who can cover, that's going to be the big question. And the secondary needs to make sure they step up. And like you said, the front needs to make sure they rush this quarterback.
Yeah, and going on to White Plains offensively, Mars, they rotated quarterbacks in the first week. You saw some Englert. You saw some Bondi. But I really like what I saw from Englert. I mean, this kid is at 6'3". He moves well. He made some really nice throws in the pocket and rolling out. Some he had some drops. But I thought he moved around pretty well, and he made some nice plays. Obviously, we know about the weapons, right? Pierre made a huge play that kind of brought them back into the game on a deep pass. LaSalle made a deep catch as well. And, what I really noticed against Portchester and what they struggled with on defense was the play-action pass, right? So I'm expecting to see White Plains use a little bit of that. Give the ball to McGuire, who, we all know how much I like McGuire. I think he's a very versatile back that you could throw to, and you can run the ball with him. Try to run the ball with him, and then the play-action out of the spread, throw into those weapons. I think that's where they can really hurt Portchester. And we'll see if Portchester, kind of redeems itself out of the play action. But I can see White Plains trying to attack that and definitely get on the edge with these weapons because it's hard for any defense to man up with those guys. Defensively, Mars, win first down. We talked about it. Last week, Portchester got behind the chains, and that really kind of put the offense back, whether it was penalties, negative penetration plays. So for me, White Plains probably wants to do the same thing Scarsdale did. Win first down, get them in 2nd and 3rd and long, and then you can get pressure off the edge, right? So Scarsdale, that's what they did. They got pressure on the quarterback on long down situations, and I'm expecting White Plains to do something similar. So to me, the big group is this White Plains defensive line. Can they win up front, right? That's going to be the big thing. Get them behind the chains and then force them to be a passing team. That's probably the best route for them, Mars. What are your thoughts on White Plains?
White Plains, when it comes to the offensive scheme, it really has to do a lot with speed. Yeah. You need to make sure you get to the edge. That's your bread and butter. I mean, granted, I think the quarterback play was pretty good, and then you see a lot of good plays being made. I think White Plains has that big playability, and I think that is a very deadly thing to have in high school sports. But they, like you said, focus on getting to the outside, show off your speed. Defensively, you want to put Portchester in a spot where, like we mentioned earlier, that they have to throw the ball. Yeah. They have to. I mean, not saying they can't throw, but you want them to throw on a 3rd and 7, right? Make them have to throw slightly deep, just because they're not used to it. And I think that by doing that, especially in a newer scheme for this team, is going to benefit you in the long run. So I think that White Plains, they have a lot of potential offensively, defensively. It's really about staying disciplined and causing some pressure.
Yeah. Absolutely. In the matchup I'm looking for, Mars, this White Plains passing attack versus that Portchester secondary with those weapons and the quarterback versus the secondary is going to be really intriguing and probably be a big indicator of where this game is going. Mars, let's go to the next game. Suffern 0-1 at Scarsdale, who won, and they're 1-0. Suffern lost to Arlington. They kind of got beat up. They lost 35-8. Scarsdale beat Portchester, like we just talked about previously, 25-0. And Scarsdale's actually 4-2 versus Suffern since 2004, and they've also won 2 straight, including a win in 2017, which was the last time that they played them. And let's start with the away team, Suffern, Mars. Offensively, it was a struggle. Let's just call it what it is last week. And the biggest thing that not concerned me, but was noticeable was up front they really couldn't get movement. And I have a lot of faith in the Suffern offensive line, but it was difficult. It was a tough sledding versus that Arlington front. The good news is I don't think Suffern has the same size as Arlington does up front, but they do have some.
Scarsdale doesn't have enough size. You said Suffern.
I'm sorry. Suffern playing Scarsdale. Scarsdale doesn't have the size up front that Arlington had. And, just looking about last week, Suffern, you could tell that they were rusty. There was too many penalties. They were struggling in the passing game. And when they go to their bread and butter, which is running the football, they were having difficulties getting movement. So I'm expecting them to go, not really change a lot of things. I'm just expecting them to play better. I think that you're going to see up front they're going to play better. I think you're going to see the quarterback play get a little better. They have a young quarterback. I think he's going to grow as the season goes along. I think you're going to see improvement. Now, what I did find interesting is when they struggled in the first half, at the start of the second half, they went to double wings, right, to run with some power. I could see them try to put a little bit more into that and try to muscle Scarsdale. So I'm expecting to see a lot of running plays again, try to get a little more on the edge, get into easier situations for the quarterback who was facing some pressure and made some difficult decisions, right? So I'm expecting that to be better. I think you're going to see an improved Suffern offensive attack. Defensively, Mars, you're playing the option. And we talked about this in the last segment. That means you have to be disciplined, right? So you got to be disciplined. You got to attack your reads. You got to know where you're going after the football. And you're going up against an athletic quarterback who I thought had a very good game last week. So, you got a different style quarterback. Last week, Arlington's guy was, he was accurate. He made smart decisions. This week, you have an accurate guy, but he's going to hurt you more running the ball. So he's an athletic guy. You got to keep him in between the pocket. And, you're going to face this trio of Miller, Glantz, Higgins, running the ball with that quarterback. You're going to rely a lot on a linebacker like Chow and those edge defenders to keep everything bottled up. Mars, what are your thoughts on Suffern?
Yeah, when you look at Suffern, I was in shock. I did pick Arlington, but I was surprised that it blew up the way it did. And I think that like you said, a lot of rust for sure, a lot of penalties. And I just think that the O-line struggled a lot against the very large front that Arlington has. And I think this will be a kind of a bounce back week for this offensive line because now they have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
I think they are very good, and I think that they need to now kind of just relax, right? I think they kind of were just bugging out too much last week, and I think that now they'll kind of stick to their bread and butter. I think that like you said, they're going to add in some more double wing. They'll run off the edges a little bit more with some more strength to guide the running backs going forward. Makes their life a lot easier. And defensively, it's really simple. You're playing against a very disciplined team. Not saying it's going to be easy, but you're going to get tired. You might want to. You could mess up, but you have to stay diligent. You have to play Scarsdale tough because of the fact that they can get you on any of those type of reads. If one guy messes up,
can't be lazy.
Yeah, if one guy messes up, it can hurt you bad. So
Absolutely.
they really it's all about staying disciplined and winning the line of scrimmage.
Moving to Scarsdale Morrison, we talked about they run that option offense. And I kind of mentioned in the last segment, I was really impressed by their quarterback, Ebner Borst. Last year, Scarsdale had Miller at quarterback. This year, it's going to be Ebner Borst, who's one of their best athletes. They move into the quarterback spot, and this is a dual-threat guy. He made some nice throws on the run at a play action, and that's really where most of the passes come from in this offense. And is another guy who can hurt you running the football. And he had a good game last week, and I was really impressed with him. So I'm expecting him to, if they have a chance to win, he's going to be a big part of that. But I think where the win is going to come, if they can pull this off, is up front, right? You're talking about Knob, you're talking about Aforo, you're talking about Price. They're going to have to win up front against Suffern, against that front seven, similar to what Arlington did. That's how they're going to have the best success of winning. And I think another really important is the fullback, Miller. He's their more powerful runner. Right? He's a guy who runs with power at the fullback spot. Arlington showed that that's how they hurt him, is running with power. And I'm interested to see if Miller can do something similar to that out of the option, because that'll set up the outside run to Glantz, to Higgins on those pitches, on those quarterback keeps. So I'm really interested to see what up front, up that power run offense with the fullback on those dives and those traps can do. And then, moving to the defensive side, Mars, again, it does determine what happens up front. You're still going up, just because they lost to Arlington doesn't mean that offensive line is not good, right? We have a lot of faith in that offensive line. They're going to be stout. You need to be solid up front. I was really impressed by the linebacking core of Scarsdale. Guys like Glantz, outside linebackers like Lowy and Potters Mars, they were really active for Scarsdale, and they're going to have to be like that again, especially if Suffern is going to be attacking the C-gaps with Lubin, with Chow on the edge. They're going to have to be really active and make a lot of plays to bottle up this rush attack. So it's going to take a group effort. And so, Mars, what are your thoughts on Suffolk?
With Scarsdale, when it comes to Scarsdale's option offense, I mean, it's really about winning. Like, I think it's really about gaining positive yards on every take. And we kind of mentioned this with Portchester before. I think Scarsdale kind of showed off that they could do that very effectively last week. But the fact that they have kind of several different weapons on all different parts at the different levels of this team gives them a pretty good advantage when it comes to that. I think when you are scheming against another team that you're playing against, like Suffern-wise, you want to look at what the opponent did. And what Arlington did was basically win up front, win the trench warfare. And I think that's going to be essential to if Scarsdale is thinking of pulling off a victory. And I think it has to be on all facets. I think not only does it have to be on the offensive line point of view, but running back play. You have to play downhill. You can't be dancing, and you got to be attacking. Yeah. And I thought Arlington did. I mean, defensively, same thing on the other side. You got to win the trenches. I mean, you have Clever and Lubin on the playing at the running back spot. I mean, it's not easy to take down. It's got to be a team group. You got to really you got several hats to the ball, and they have to tackle him, make him more tired to the point where they have to go with somebody else. That's going to be really the goal of the defense this week. Yeah,
and I'm to a similar mindset. And my matchup is that Suffern offensive line versus Scarsdale front seven. I think that's going to really dictate, similar to what it was last week, that trench warfare. That's going to be the big indicator if Scarsdale has a chance to win this game, or Suffern has a chance to win this game. All right, Mars, let's go to the next game. Fox Lane 0-1 at John J. East Fishkill, who is 1-0. Fox Lane lost to Carmel 51-14. And John J. East Fishkill beat North Rockland 15-12 in a bit of a slugfest, that game. But John J. East Fishkill is 5-0 versus Fox Lane. Last time they played them was in 2017 when they won. And John J. East Fishkill is 10-2 in their last 12 games at home. So you're looking at a team that is really good at home in recent years. The last, I think it's now 3 years counting. But let's start with Fox Lane offensively. It was another team that you saw a lot of rust, that struggled offensively. Carmel got a lot of pressure on them, especially off the edge. And Fox Lane, they want to come out into the spread. They did come out with single back, tried to run some power O, but just too many negative plays, Mars. Like turnovers, sacks, getting behind the chains. It was ugly for Fox Lane. Let's just call it what it is offensively. And, this week, again, going up against John J. East Fishkill, it will not be easy running up the middle against this East Fishkill linebacking core. They were really good. But what I could say is if they're coming out to the spread, Horvath, try to get him out in space. He did make a couple big plays to spark the offense last week against Carmel. Just stick with it. And I'm expecting their quarterback, another young quarterback in Miller, to get better. I mean, this is what you get from young quarterbacks. You're going to get mistakes, and he definitely had some last week. And I'm expecting the quarterback play, whether it is Miller or whether it's Young, to make some plays and to get better. But it's good, the biggest thing is to not turn the ball over is going to be big, right? So you can't turn the ball over. You got to be disciplined. Take what the defense gives you, and Fox Lane will definitely be improved if they can avoid those negative plays. Defensively, Mars, it kind of carried over from offense to defense. They struggled at the start of the game, right? Carmel went right down the field and scored on them. And they were really hurt by the quarterback breaking contain on them, getting outside of them. And some of the throws to the outside, some of the outside runs, the edge was not at Fox Lane's high point. And I know Fox Lane had a really good defense last year, and they were returning some good defenders. So so that was so surprising to me. I know coach is probably not happy giving up 50 points. I know they scored on a pick six and some turnovers put them in a bad spot. But giving up that many points on defense, the Fox Lane defense, coach is not happy with it. So I'm expecting their, to hunker down and to definitely try to prevent any quarterback rollouts, quarterback runs on the edge, and really jets on the edge too. So they really want to shore up the edge, I can imagine. And their secondary is going to be tested by this John J. East Fishkill pass attack. So the secondary's got to be ready. There were times that they struggled last week, and this time they're going to have to be ready because there's a lot of weapons and a quarterback who can throw. Mars, what's your thoughts on Fox Lane?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like they just had too many negative plays, like you mentioned. That they showed a lot of rust for sure, a lot of undisciplined penalties, turnovers, you name it. And I think this was kind of if you want to give a team that showed the most rust, Fox Lane might have been that team. And I think that they will naturally just play a lot better this game just because of the fact that they got the goosebumps off. I think they're going to be feeling a lot better. Unfortunately for them, they're playing against John G. Fishkill, who is a top tier team to play against. But when it comes to what they should do, I mean, like you said, spread them out. You have to make your players make the big plays, and I think getting John Jay's defense in the open field is going to be in your favor. You kind of thrive in that open field. Who's going to make the play first? Who can win this battle type of mentality? And I think that they need to kind of do this going forward. When it comes to defensively, it's the same kind of deal. They a lot of discipline issues, a lot of things that they kind of those little mistakes that become
a lot of broken contained,
a lot of
and
mistakes.
Tackles.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they add up. All these little mistakes add up, and it clearly added up to a big loss. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to just understand a team that makes mistakes. The other squad is going to take advantage of them and make big plays out of it. And if you limit those, the games will be a lot closer. And I feel like this week, Fox Lane's defense is not going to make the same mistakes as it did last week against Carmel.
Yeah, and moving now to John J. East Fishkill offensively, normally you think of East Fishkill, you think of a power running football team. They're really not that, especially this year. They have scrappy backs, but not big, powerful backs. Guys like Whalen and guys like Crochet are tough guys, but they're not like overpowering big guys. But they'll get harder in runs, but they're not going to be run you over type of offense. The real star of the show, in my opinion, is their quarterback, Beal. And I think he's a baller. He had that huge fourth down jump pass, and it was really a grinded-out football game where both defenses were imposing their will. And it was separated by a couple plays, and Beal made a few of them. So he had over 200-plus yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick six, which definitely hurt. But, I would imagine that they're going to test Fox Lane's secondary. Right, with Beal rolling out, getting out of the pocket, not sitting in the pocket because they want to give him a chance to use his legs, similar to what Carmel did with their quarterback. Right, test the discipline of the defense to break contain, and I think he's going to get out on the edge, and he's got guys that he could throw to. I mean, you're talking about Ryan, Peyton, Holtz, Kazab, who had that big extra point block, which really put North Rockland in a bind because now they had to go for 2. They didn't get it. All these little points add up. But he has all these weapons surrounding him, and, they can really test the secondary. And I imagine that's what they're going to do. They're definitely going to mix in those runs, edge runs, get the quarterback using his legs. And I could see them attacking North Rockland in multiple fronts, but really getting into that pass is really going to change for them. Defensively, I got to say, I was really impressed by the inside linebacker play from John Jay. That was my biggest question for the group, and I was really impressed by the inside linebackers Mueller and Whalen. They were really all over the place. They were very active. They were just really solid. I also saw, I always thought East Fishkill had a really solid secondary. There were times that things leaked on them, but the big thing for them is to get pressure up front. If they can get pressure up front, put the game into a young quarterback's hands, try to force him to make mistakes like he did last week. That's what the biggest thing. Get the secondary to make plays on the football. That's going to be key for them because I think Fox Lane is going to struggle to run in between the tackles with these inside linebackers if they're as active as they were last week. So as long as they just prevent the big plays on the outside and force this game to go into the quarterback's hand, that's going to be, I think, East Fishkill's best chance of pulling off this game, Mars. What is your takeaway?
All right, look at John G. East Fishkill. I mean, like you said, they are drifting away from what they are always used to be, a powerhouse of running you over, and they kind of shifted to that. I mean, shifted out of it. I mean, Beal is definitely a player. He's very talented. He can really sling the rock. He can move his feet. I mean, he has it all. But you have all these other weapons on this team as well. And I really think that they're going to test the secondary to find out whether or not they can cover. And I think that it's really going to be based on how Fox Lane reacts. If the secondary plays well, then you'll see John Jay will kind of pull off other different ways and means of scoring points. But if the secondary struggles, I mean, that means Beal's going to have a big day. And I think that's going to be kind of how they'll start the game. And then, like I said, it might change after that. But when you look at defensively, you have to really applaud, the front seven, specifically the linebackers. Yeah. But I really think that in order for them to kind of, gain some sort of momentum is going to have to be controlling the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think that whether it's against the run or causing quarterbacks to kind of make a mistake by throwing it into your own teammates' hands is really going to be the most important thing, and just making sure you win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Right, that's going to be obviously crucial in a game like this, where the first week of Russ is out of the way. Teams are going to be more disciplined. If you can get the more turnovers, I think this could be a solid win for John Jay.
Yeah, and for me, the matchup, and I'm interested to see Fox Lane's passing attack. Do they improve from last week? Right? Too many turnovers, too many sacks. How do they rebound from a game like last week versus this John Jay's Fishkill secondary that I feel is a very good secondary? I know there were some leaks last week versus North Rockland, but overall, I thought they were very solid, and we're going to see that matchup. It's going to be an important one. All right, Mars, going to the next game. RCK 0-1 at North Rockland, a pair of 0-1 teams. Both gritty, tough losses. RCK lost to New Rochelle in a game that was close for a majority of the game. And similar to North Rockland, losing that game towards the end. They were driving on East Fishkill, turned over on downs on East Fishkill side of the ball. Both tough losses and both teams that have very gritty defenses. So, but if you look at the historic matchup, RCK and North Rockland have split the series 2-2. But North Rockland has won 2 straight, including a win in 2018. So we are going to, RCK's won 2 straight, including a win in 2018. So, let's start with the away team, RCK, offensively. They really did struggle to move the ball against New Rochelle. I mean, they run the double wing. New Rochelle obviously has a lot of speed and size. It's difficult to run the ball consistently against them. The good news is you're not running against New Rochelle again, right? But the bad news is North Rockland did a pretty darn good job stopping the run against John Jay East Fishkill, so it will not be easy running the ball on them consistently either. And I think RCK will have more success. I think they'll attack off tackle with Warner, but they really need to use their size because they are big up front. They need to use their size, their muscle. They need to get some chunk plays. That's what really hurt them. They couldn't get any chunk plays against New Rochelle. It really made them have to grind out drives. And it will be like that, but they need to find a way to make some big plays. And then that could be getting on the edge and some play action passes. I know they threw, I think, just a handful of times against New Rochelle. I can see them try to, hit on some big passes, try to get the ball downfield, try to get some of these backs in open space. They're going to need to because North Rockland is another stout defense. If you just try to grind it out with them, it'll be tough sledding, and you're going to put a lot of pressure on the defense to be near perfect. And I know that RCK might not want to do that again. Defensively, I was really impressed with them defensively. RCK versus New Rochelle. I mean, these guys have some size. They caused some penetration, especially up front with Vanderlyn and Nunez, and they really rallied with the ball. I liked the play of their linebackers. They made it difficult, and I think it's going to be difficult for North Rockland to run the ball on them, but New Rochelle did hit some play-action passes on them, and North Rockland found a little something in the passing game last week. So I would imagine that if the run doesn't work early for North Rockland, they will go into pass mode and try to test the secondary of RCK. So we're going to definitely see them try to stop the run first, force North Rockland to pass, but they're going to have to get some pressure up front, and the secondary definitely is going to have to play some good man coverage and zone coverage. So, Mars, what are your thoughts on RCK?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to RCK, you kind of have to be able to kind of mix it up. I mean, like you said, New Rochelle had their number when it comes to trying to run the ball, and I think that obviously you're not playing against Neuro, but this is still a good defense, and you're going to have to attack really the edges. You're going to have to make sure that you develop some sort of a pass and run. I mean, you can't just focus on just the run because I think North Rockland will just key in on it.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do multiple different things to kind of keep the defense, guessing what you're going to do. But I think mainly you have to utilize the size you have. I feel like that, and you can say that from offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some big boys up front, and I think that that's going to benefit you when you're trying to get the edge, try to move the line of scrimmage in your favor, and I think that's going to be crucial for their offense going forward. I mean, defensively, as you mentioned, it was very impressive what they were able to do. I mean, New Rochelle has always been a powerhouse offensively and defensively, but this was a showdown, and I really did like to see how the way that RCK was playing, but it's going to be how well do you defend the pass, right? That's going to be what kind of tells us how this game is going to go going forward. I think the run, they're pretty solid already, and I just think that if they can limit the pass of North Rockland, this could be very interesting.
Yeah, and they definitely improved from last year because last year and we're going to see as the trends continue, but last year they gave up a lot of plays in the passing game. They only gave up a couple to New Rochelle, but they were pretty tight run pass. And if they can bring that kind of intensity, this could be a good defensive unit. Moving to North Rockland Mars offensively, I was really impressed by their quarterback play, Batio Rodriguez, and the pass attack. That was going to be the big thing. And Coach talked about improving the passing attack because he wanted to open things up a little bit, not just be that ground and pound run, even though that's what North Rockland identity is. And Mateo Rodriguez made a nice couple plays to their tight end Carswell, wide receivers Riello and Becker. I was impressed by this passing attack, and I'm expected to see more of it versus RCK. It definitely had a different feel to this North Rockland offense because when they go to the pass, I think they might go pretty early and pass often because it will not be easy to run versus RCK. Nerschel's got good size and speed, and it was a struggle for them. And this is not really, I liked what Frazier brought at the running back spot, but he's not that bell cow back that North Rockland usually has yet, right? So it's going to be interesting. I'm also concerned about Manny Mena, one of their best players on the offensive and defensive line. He got banged up last week. Coach said that he's doing better, but you got one of your better players banged up. It's going to be really important on both fronts. So we're going to see offensively what North Rockland does. I'm expecting to see them spread it out a little more and try to throw it. Defensively, Mars, again, I would imagine they're coming out in the double wing. You're going to see 7 to 8 man boxes, and they're going to try to force RCK to throw the football, right? So I think, load up the box, try to force RCK, try to force RCK to be a passing team, but also you're going to have to shoot the gas because these guys are big up front. So if you just try to play around with these linemen, they'll push you around, right? So you want to penetrate, you want to keep your linebackers free, and one of them that really impressed me, Garifol, their outside linebacker, he's not tall at all, but man, he is scrappy and he's always around the football. So that's the kind of guy who can stop those edge plays. But you got to keep those big linemen off him. So, try to get these linemen out in front of you to hold up the offensive linemen, to try to get penetration and let those guys in the back end make some plays for North Rockland Mars. What are your thoughts on North Rockland?
Well, I said in the team preview that if North Rockland can develop the pass, it would definitely make their offense more dynamic and more lethal, and they definitely showed that last week. I mean, it was a showdown, just like the RCK Neuro game against Chanchi's Fishkill. It was to the bitter end. Yeah. And I think that having the ability to pass and run now makes North Rockland a more dangerous team down the line. And I think that they need to now utilize this and keep going. And I think now the fact that you're playing against RCK, who's very good against the run so far this season, I think that now, like you said, they'll spread it out more. We'll see how much they can really do with the pass. And I still think you need to be able to run the ball. But at the end of the day, by you opening up, spreading it out, might make RCK kind of bail out, and that might open up the run for you because that's kind of the whole game plan of how spread teams do it. Yeah. And I think that when it comes to defensively, it's pretty simple. Stop the run, force the pass. I mean, you want RCK to do something that they don't want to do, right? You want them to pass the ball because at the end of the day, they might not be as good at it, and it could open up some turnover ability, just like they did against Chanchi's Fishkill. I mean, Beal is a good quarterback and all, but he would do a pick six against his defense. Yeah, absolutely. And to me, the matchup, again, this North Rockland pass attack, which was surprising, I'm interested to see it again. And versus this RCK secondary, I imagine this would be a nice little showdown of that pass attack versus the defense. Mars, let's go to our game of the week. And this week's game of the week is Arlington at Carmel. Arlington 1-0. They defeated Suffern in what was probably, in both of our opinions, these two teams had the most impressive victories, right? So Arlington beat Suffern handily, and Carmel, young Carmel team, beat Fox Lane handily. Right? Put up 50 points. So both teams were very impressive. These two teams have split this series 7-7. So each team has 7 victories since 2004. Carmel won in 2019, the last time they played, 35-13. This is an intriguing matchup, Mars, of veteran versus youth. And maybe youth might be overachieving a little bit. So I'm interested to see this matchup, and this is our game of the week for 1AA. But let's start with Arlington Mars offensively. We know what the strength is. It's up front. That offensive line with running backs Finn and Grant, they just outmuscle you. They wear you down. Those offensive linemen can move the line of scrimmage and create space for these backs who like to take one cut and go downhill. These aren't dancing backs. These are hit-the-hole hard backs, and they created some massive chunk plays
And that we know is the strength of this offense. But what made this offense even more dynamic and more impressive last week was the play of their quarterback, Fortunato. And, I thought he was really solid throwing the ball. He was decisive. He connected a few times on some nice reads and some nice throws to Griffin and Vanzalato. He brought some nice balance to this offense. And Coach, before the season, talked about being more balanced and working on the pass attack. Well, it was a good start. I'll tell you that. And if they can stay consistent, they will be really tough offense. I would imagine when they bring in the tight ends, you're going to see loaded boxes, but they can move things around. They'll bring in an H-back. They'll bring in the fullback. They'll spread it around, and they'll even show the attempt to throw and throw accurately. And if they could do that, this will be, no matter what defense they play, is going to be a tough one. But I would imagine they're going to try to outmuscle Carmel. I would imagine with a young football team, you have the size advantage. They're going to try to muscle them and wear them down. That's what I would think. And then that will open up the pass for them. And that's when they can hit some big plays. Because Carmel showed in the secondary last week, they got some speed and they got some dudes that are ball hawks. Right? They forced a bunch of turnovers. They forced some sacks. So I would imagine that they're going to try to beat them up a little bit offensively. That's where I think Arlington goes, Mars. Defensively, again, the strength is in the front seven. I got to tell you, Gibson and Weathers were beasts against Suffern. They dominated up front. And whoever number 6, someone's got to help me out in the country, in our support system out there. Who number 66 is on Arlington? Because with Gibson and Weathers, they dominated up front. I mean, they caused serious havoc. And obviously with the linebackers, Finn, Olivier, McConnell, Pavon, those guys in the front seven dominated Suffern last week. And I would imagine that they are going to be big in getting pressure on the young quarterback, getting, penetrating against this young offensive line. This is going to be the key for this game for defense on Arlington. Secondary-wise, the biggest thing is going to get pressure on the young quarterback, and for the secondary to take advantage of any mistakes, like they did against Suffern when their young quarterback made mistakes. They made plays that opened it up, forced turnovers, gave the offense good field position, and I would imagine it's going to be a similar mindset for Arlington. Mars, what's your thought on Arlington?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a surprise the way that Fortunato played. I mean, the fact is, we already knew the offensive line was huge up front, that they had skilled running backs. Now the fact that they have quarterback play that, as well as it was, it now just opens up the playbook even more, and I think that's just the more dangerous part about this. But, I mean, when it comes to how do you scheme against Carmel, they're a young team, right? You have the size, you have the strength, and you have the skill players. If you can have your quarterback, Fortunato, keep playing the way he did last week with your ability to move people, move individuals, I think that there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I mean, like, you can just run over, or you can run to open up the pass, and then you utilize your open receivers because they're bailing out on the run.
Yeah.
When it comes to defensively, I mean, just you have to continue doing what you did against Suffern. Win the trench, right? If you win the trench, it's going to cause Carmel to have to come up with something different, and by you having a good pass rush is going to now make a young quarterback kind of make a mistake, and that's kind of the essential thing. You need to capitalize on those mistakes, and by having more the win of the turnover differentials, like those the turnover battle, you win more of them. It's going to be pretty simple.
Yeah, and if that front seven dominates, Carmel likes to come out in multiple looks. They'll come out in heavy looks. They'll come out in I form, and they'll go into spread. Right? And they'll adjust on how well things are going. So if you can dominate up front, that will put Carmel into more spread looks. Right? And if you could do that, then those defensive linemen can pin their ears back and try to get to the quarterback, which will make things difficult for Carmel. For this video, we're going to talk about Arlington's power run game and their ability to block at the line of scrimmage and ability to move the line of scrimmage and really open up this offense for the talented backs to create big chunk plays. And Arlington has one of the best fronts in 1AA, and it's, they really showed out in week 1 versus Suffern. I'm going to go over a couple plays, how even with loaded box, they do a good job of getting a hat on a hat and creating some movement. You can see in this play there in I formation, tight end is to the right of the offense, to the defense's left. You can see right here, they're in the I, and they're going to run weak. Okay, that's what they want. But look at this, 8-man box. Okay, Suffern, this looks like a run-heavy scheme. Suffern has a good idea that a run is coming, load up the box, but it still won't matter. Right? So they're going to run an ISO play weak. The big blocks right here is this double team on the defensive tackle, the kick out by the offense's left tackle, And there's an isolation block on the play side linebacker from the fullback. Okay, and they're going to run Richie Finn in between the guard and the tackle following that fullback. Okay, watch them get a body on a body right here. Okay, this is a nice little double team right here. They create movement. They get the body turned of the defender. The tackle, although doesn't get a great piece of him, gets just enough to kick him out. And you can see there's a mistake on the defense. 2 defenders went outside. But this opens up that seam. And the fullback gets a nice clean look at the play side linebacker. And Richie Finn hits the hole hard. If he waits, that outside defender might get him. But he hits the hole hard. There's the seam right there. And watch him explode through the hole. And then look at the speed and strength not to get knocked out of bounds. This was the first offensive possession for Arlington. And where do they just kick it off? A huge play that results in a touchdown. Ends up resulting in a touchdown. Again, watch him. I mean, Arlington's offense really opens things up. Again, let's go to another play. 8-man box again. Tight end to the left. This time they're in the gun. And although it is a different formation, similar concept, instead of a fullback, they actually bring in an H-back. You can see right there. Okay? And they're going to run weak. Okay? It's not just Richie Finn that's talented. They have another guy, Grant. Again, the important box. Watch the offensive line and the tight ends and the H-back. They all do a fantastic job of getting a hat on a hat. But the big block here, double team, right onto the point of attack. They're running weak to the middle linebacker. You're going to see a double team backside to the backside backer. Tight end is going to make sure that he cuts off this defensive end. Play side tackle is going to kick out this defensive end. And you're going to get an ISO block on the play side linebacker with this H-back. Watch the O-line move. First off, look at the movement. Look at the nice movement they create. Look at this kick out by the tackle. Look at this seam. And now there's the ISO block. Another good job getting a hat on a hat. Gets his head on the outside. Gives this running back a chance to move. And watch him hit the hole. Give him space. And now look at this. Another big chunk play. You saw this often. Everything didn't result in a 30-yard run. They were getting 4 yards, 5 yards a carry. They were really wearing down this Suffern defense, and it starts up front. Look at these guys. Look at the movement. Look at him get a hat on a hat. And now he's off to the races. And if Arlington can control the front like they did in week 1, they're going to be a tough offense to stop. For Carmel. But going to Carmel, Mars, and offensively, we talked about the multiple looks. Spread. They'll go to heavy 3-back looks. They'll go to I looks. Right? They'll bring one tight end. They'll bring out trips. They'll give you a lot. But I got to say, they did a really nice job of giving you a balanced attack, whether it's quick passes, outside runs, and then pounding the rock in between the tackles. They did a really good job, and then play action out of it. So they really gave a nice balance offensively, and they were really impressive. And, they ran downhill with their running back, Massey. We know some of the weapons on the outside, McDonald, Richardson, Fiore, who made some nice plays out of the quick passing game, which prevented any attempt of a pass rush. I would imagine that's what they're going to try to do. Keep the defense off balance by giving them a bunch of different looks, attacking them in different angles, because they don't want the quarterback to hold on to the ball with this defensive line, right? Because they could cause serious havoc. So I would imagine it's going to be a similar attack. What really impressed me, Mars, was not only their ability to run up the middle, but their quarterback play, their young quarterback, Kevin Dahl, the junior. He was impressive. I mean, he made some nice plays with his legs. When something wasn't there, he took off and run and made some big runs. And he was decisive with the ball. He knew where he was going. He made some accurate throws. He had some savviness to him. It was definitely an impressive first start for him. And I'm really intrigued to see him go up against this kind of defense and how he reacts to this defensive front that's going to be in front of him. Looking at it, before we go to the defense, actually, Mars, what are your thoughts on the offense before I go to my breakdown?
Well, I mean, it was quite a surprise to see the amount of different looks that they have. And Carmel's always been like that. But remember, a team preview, I thought, you're not going to be able to throw the kitchen sink. But it kind of seems as though they kind of did throw a bunch of the sink at at Fox Lane, and it worked. I mean, I think Carmel's method of offense is going to be keep the defense guessing, right? Make them think more than the actual being aggressive, because when you have them thinking about where they have to be, what play is this coming out, it makes them have to be hesitant, and then you can capitalize on that kind of that stalling. And I think that having the mixture of both passing and running did give them the ability to kind of pick and choose what scenario they want to be in. I mean, I think this is great for Carmel. I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of said that they would be developing as the year progresses, but it seems as though they look like a team that hasn't missed a step. And I think that's a pretty big thing to see with a young team like this.
Absolutely. And I did actually an offensive breakdown on Carmel and the young quarterback that they had that really impressed me week 1. For this video, I'm talking about Carmel's offense and more specifically their young quarterback, Kevin Dahl. And this kid had an impressive first start, in my opinion. I think he did a little bit of everything. He ran the ball well. He made some smart decisions. And he had a little bit of savviness to him. And I'm interested to see how he grows week to week, because he can be an interesting spark plug for this offense. And I'm going to go over a couple plays that he had and that this offense had that impressed me. And let's start off in their spread look. Carmel likes to run multiple looks, and you'll see multiple different formations, different personnel groups. And it puts a lot of taxing hours on the defense and defensive coordinator, but understanding their personnel groups is very important. But let's start off in their spread look. Okay, they're 2v2. And what the offense is going to do, they're going to try to run at it. They're near the goal line. They're going to run some zone read. Quarterback focusing on this defensive end. He's really going to read whether he should give it or pull it. Now, if he stays there, he'll give it. If he comes up the field, he'll give it to the tailback. The only time he'll pull it is if he crashes down. Right? So let's say this is not an easy read for a young guy, but a read that they have to make. He sees him crashing down. He's looking to pull the ball. Now he uses athleticism, his speed, to make a play. There's a nice pull right there. Here we go, one-on-one with a defensive back. And he makes him look foolish. All right? We're going to make a miss and then use the speed to finish it. Again, from the top. Right? This is showing his legs. This is showing his ability to read right here. A nice little read. Pull the ball. Make a play. All right? Nice little speed right there he has. Okay, let's go to passing the ball. Okay, Carmel's trips left, single receiver to the right. This time he's going to make a decision on where to throw the football. He's going to throw it towards the trips. You're going to see an out by the number 3 receiver, 2 slants by the outside 2 receivers. Okay, now they are, but the defense is in man free, or they look like they're in man free. The safety's in the middle of the field. His eyes are looking at this linebacker. Okay, because if this linebacker drops in the hook to curl zone, he's not going to be throwing to this slant on the number 2 receiver. But if he runs out, if he's man on this number 3 receiver, that window, he's pretty much going to throw to where he's standing currently. All right? So let's see. He's got to make a quick decision. He hikes it. He reads it. He sees this linebacker running out to the flats. He knows the window's right here. You can't lead him too far up the field because they have that safety over the middle of the field that can knock the receiver's head out or make a play on the ball. So he knows the pocket's right there. Again, a quick decision. This is all in a matter of seconds. Nice little accurate throw. The receiver didn't fall over. He probably walks into the end zone. Right? Doesn't lead him too far. Start at the top. Again, quick hike. He reads it. He sees the linebacker running out. Obviously, there's a bit of a busted coverage because no one stays with that slant. And it's just a nice read. Sets him up for another score. Let's talk about the savviness, right? Look at Carmel coming out. Now, tight end, 2 backs in the backfield. Again, give him more of a heavy look. They're going to run play action, right? Fake a run to the right. This is a nice, well-designed play. They're going to have a couple drags from the left side come to the right side of the field. And this tight end, number 7, who lined up at wide receiver a bunch of times, he's at the tight end spot, right? Understanding personnel. They like to bring in different personnel to do different things. He's going to run a deep drag back to the left side. Okay, the most important thing they got to do is get these linebackers and safeties to bite on the run fake. And that's exactly what he does. Okay, here's the play action. It's really important for young quarterbacks to know, show the ball in play action. Give a good play action fake. Look at all these guys, their eyes in the backfield. Okay, once he gives a nice fake, look at him hold that ball right out here. Showing like, hey, I'm giving it. Actually, I'm not. Everyone takes a step up. That's what's going to open up the deep drag. But I like the poise. I like the savviness he has. Look at this. Free rusher coming. Okay, he knows where he's going with the ball. He sees it. He stays calm, cool, and collected and makes a nice throw. That's easy. I'm interested to see this kid's growth. He was impressive first start. If he can continue to grow, this will give Carmel a dynamic playmaker at the quarterback spot. All right, Mars, let's move to the defense of Carmel. And the first thing, obviously, you have to stop, and we saw that in spades on offense and via the breakdown for Arlington's offense. They have to stop that downhill rushing attack, right? That's going to be the number one thing that they're probably going to stack the box, look for my five-man fronts, even potentially, getting 8 guys into the box, especially when they bring in a tight end. They need to create penetration with the defensive line. I think Carmel, and we've seen this often, they're always well coached, right? We know that. But Carmel now has had multiple years where they have a speedy defense. Speedy, feisty defense that rallies to the football, multiple guys hitting you. And one guy who really impressed me watching tape on the defensive line who caused a lot of havoc, Telesco, the junior, on the defensive line. He really was creating some big-time plays, had a couple sacks, had some nice hits on the quarterback. He's going to be big because he's going up against some big linemen. He's going to have to create penetration. And even the rest of the front, it was a group effort going after the quarterback. They're going to have that same type of intensity, same type of penetration to give them a chance, especially when the Arlington's offense, if they get behind in the chains and they go into those spread looks, right? So this is going to be a big matchup, definitely a jump in size from last week. So we're going to see speed kind of versus size, and I'm interested to see which comes out the victor. But also, if they can get him into behind the chains and into those pass looks, I actually like Carmel's secondary matching up with Arlington's wide receivers, even though they weren't impressive last week. Carmel's secondary was pretty darn impressive. Rosenford, Maz, Fiore, Risley, they forced a bunch of turnovers. They made some nice plays on the ball. It was impressive to watch. They were in the right spot. There wasn't really blown coverages. They were well coached. Again, this was a really impressive victory they had for a young football team. And now we're going to see them going up against some big boys and kind of a jump up in probably the class of one AA outside of Norshell. Who's going to be that team? We're going to see. And I'm intrigued on this defense, Mars. What are your thoughts on the defense?
Like you said, they're fast. They have some nastiness to them. I think that's kind of what's become Carmel's mantra at this point, especially when it comes defensively. They're aggressive. And I feel like they've always been that team that will have many hats to the ball. They're going to have guys that are going to hit you on all different angles, and I think they have to continue doing that when it comes to playing against this massive offensive line that they're going up against. At the end of the day, it's all about winning the trenches here. I think that if you can
talk a lot about trenches, man.
Yeah, man, that's just really what it is in high school football. I think if you can limit the amount of downhill runs that Arlington's going to throw at you, you definitely will have a very close game because Arlington's definitely going to test the waters. They're going to see how much they can get in this downhill running scheme, and if they can't, then they'll open up the pass. But as you mentioned, this might be a benefit to Carmel's defensive scheme.
Yeah, and for me, the matchup to watch, Mars, we talked about this a bunch. Arlington's offensive line for Carmel's front seven. We talk about the linebackers, you talk about the defensive line. If whoever wins that matchup, the odds are that team's winning the game. Let's just call it what it is. But the player to watch, I'm watching that young quarterback from Carmel, Kevin Dahl. I want to see his encore in this game and what he does against a pretty darn good defense in Arlington. So that's definitely going to be my player to watch. Mars, are you ready to pick the games?
Yeah, I'm ready to roll, man.
All right, now we're going to pick all the games. I think you went 5-1 last week, Mars. I went 4-2. Let's start it up. And the first one we're going to go is the Thursday game. Mars, Portchester 0-1 at White Plains, both 0-1. Question is going to be who gets the first victory. And I'm going to go with White Plains. And I think White Plains is going to get on track. I think the play-action pass hurt Portchester last week. And I think Portchester's offense will definitely improve. But I don't think they can keep up with the pass attack and the speed of White Plains. And I think that's going to be the big difference this week, Mars.
Yeah, I'm probably going to stick with White Plains as well. I feel like the speed kills in high school football. And I think that White Plains has the advantage. And Portchester, like you said, offense definitely play a lot better, and I think they'll be more disciplined for sure. But I just think that playing against White Plains' offensive scheme, where they're going to spread you out and really try to have their dynamic players make big plays, I think that's what's really just going to happen. I think it'll be a close game for sure, but I just think that White Plains will win here.
Next game, Morris, Yonkers Forest. Obviously didn't play last week in the Yonkers game because of a COVID issue with Yonkers Brave. They traveled to New Rochelle, who beat RCK last week, Mars. For this one, yeah, I'm really interested to see this Forest team and if they can keep up with the size and speed of New Rochelle. I'm taking New Rochelle. Yonkers Forest is going to have a big game from Cordero on both sides of the ball. And look at a guy, I was hearing about Yonkers Forest, their edge fullback, young football player, Jumhee Jackson, fullback and defensive end. I'm hearing some raves about him as well. So I'm interested to see who are these new names that are going to come up for Forest. And they're going to have to come up big against this New Rochelle defense. Boy, that New Rochelle defense, new coach, same defense, right? They're nasty, speedy, and they just cause a lot of issues, especially in the linebacker play. Outside linebacker, Massey, inside linebacker, Urizari. I mean, they were really active, and they made some statements last week. And I would imagine that they're going to make some this week. So, Mars, I'm going with New Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with New Rochelle, too. I mean, they look good on all facets. It was a close game for most of the game, for like 2.5, 3 quarters. But New Rochelle is a well-oiled machine, and any rust that they had last week is definitely going to be gone by this point. I just think that they have so many dynamic players on this team, offensive line that really just destroys anyone that's in their way, and a lot of backs. I just think that's just going to be too much for Yonkers Force.
Yeah, I do. And I'm interested to see New Rochelle's pass attack because that was definitely the most rustiest part of them. I'm interested to see if they can get that turned around. Next game, Mars, we broke it down. Suffern 0-1 at Scarsdale. I'll go with you first, Mars. Who you got?
I'm going to go Suffern. I think Suffern definitely had one of those games that they didn't I think they just had so much rust on them. I think the offensive line had probably one of the worst games they've had in like a full year. I mean, this is the first week of the season, but even I'm including last year too. At the end of the day, I think the offensive line will bounce back. They're going to start kind of sticking to their best guns. I think they're going to say, hey, we're going to stack the box with more players to block, and we're just going to try to run you over. And I think that might work for them. And I think as long as they stay disciplined against Scarsdale, I mean, granted, Scarsdale has a lot of weapons too. I just think that being disciplined against this offensive scheme will allow allow Suffern to kind of get the ball back and kind of have more chances at making plays. And I think that's what's going to happen.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Suffern as well. I think this is going to be a bounce-back game to them. I actually think Scarsdale is a scrappy team, well-coached football team, and I think this will be a game. But I do think that Suffern is going to muscle them a little bit, and I think they definitely want to have a bounce-back game, not just up front on the offensive line, but also on defense. I thought that they gave up way too many gashed plays. Even in the secondary, they struggled against the pass. I think Suffern kind of got a bit of a wake-up call. You could tell that they were rusty, but Scarsdale's going to if they're not disciplined, Scarsdale will definitely hurt them. But I think Suffern bounces back, and I think they get their first victory. Mars, let's go to the next one. Fox Lane 0-1 at John J. East Fishkill. This game, I think Fox Lane will definitely be more competitive. Defense is definitely going to be step up from last week. But I am going to go with John J. East Fishkill. Again, they're a bend but don't break defense, but they are hard to score points against, and it's not going to be easy for a young quarterback to make plays against them because running the football is going to be difficult, especially up the middle with these linebackers who are really active, and just the defense overall. It's going to be tough. The young quarterback's going to have to make some plays for himself, running the ball as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to see what Fox Lane does. How much do they stick with the spread, or how much do they start running the ball a little bit more? That part I'm definitely interested in. But I just feel that, John J. Fishkill has too many weapons, quarterback who can run. I see they try to put a similar scenario what Carmel did to them, and I think East Fishkill is going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with John G. East Fishkill. Their defense is still pretty lethal. I mean, it was a showdown between them and North Rockland, but it's really all about the quarterback. I think Beal is a dynamic player, can kind of do it all, and I think that he had that mistake of a pick, but I really don't see that happening too often. And I think that he could have another big game, and I think that's going to be driving this offense going forward. But I think defense is just going to kind of narrow down what Fox Lane can do. And it's just, like you said, it's quite simple. They have a lot more skill. They have a lot more ability on more different facets than I think Fox Lane does.
Next one, Mars, RCK 0-1 at North Rockland, who's both 0-1. We talked about the close losses that they had Who gets the first victory in your opinion?
I'm thinking North Rockland. I think North Rockland kind of showed that they had the ability to beat one of the top tier teams in John Jay's Fishkill. Their defense is lethal. I thought that they kind of now have the ability to open up more different ways to offensively move. I think that normally, and I said this in team preview, that they're always been a ground and pound team. But now the fact that you have good quarterback play, you can now open it up. And this is, I think, going to be very difficult for RCK to kind of bounce back from. I think RCK kind of prioritizes itself on having a very big front. The question is, can they stop the pass? And I think that North Rockland, if they can keep doing what they're doing on the passing way, passing, I think that they can now have the advantage when it comes to moving the ball.
I'm actually going to go with RCK. I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest. But I really like the way if RCK brings the same intensity defensively, I think that they can cause a lot of problems for North Rockland, especially up front. And that's what I'm expecting. I do think RCK is going to have a better chance of running the ball than they did against New Rochelle. New Rochelle is a different beast defensively. So I do think that they're going to have more success. And I think they're going to get a couple chunk plays that they did not get last week. And so that's why I think RCK makes just a couple more plays. I definitely think this will be the low-scoring game. This could be a 12-6, 13-12 type of game, in my opinion. I think this will be a low-scoring slugfest, but I'm going to go with RCK. Makes one or two more plays more. Finally, the game of the week, Mars. Arlington 1-0 at Carmel. This is a veteran Arlington team versus a young Carmel team. Who's going to win, Mars?
Well, look, you have to think of it this way. Carmel has a young squad. They showed a lot of promise in week one. They are definitely impressive. And, Dahl is kind of showing himself to be a
After 1 week, it was nice. He had a nice start.
Talent to it. And Arlington, on the other hand, has a very big offensive line. They're straight right down your face type of run style. And they do have a lot of skilled players. So I'm going to pick Arlington on this. I think Arlington just has the size, the strength, the speed all around in all different facets that I just think Carmel, I think, is the fact after week one, they looked like a very good team. They look like they haven't, like I said before, haven't missed a step. The only issue is though, I think comparing Fox Lane to Arlington is going to be a very big difference. And I think that Arlington looks like a team that is vying for a section title obviously if that ends up happening at the end of the day. And I don't think Fox Lane is vying for that at the moment. I think Arlington just has more. It's a more difficult job to go against. Even though I know you're playing at home, to go up against Arlington with this front, with this defensive front, and be able to do anything that you want. Yeah. And I think Arlington's going to kind of win the trenches in this one.
Well, Carmel has one of the best coaches in the section. They have a scrappy Carmel team. And sometimes a good thing about youth is you don't know that you're young, right? So, you're just playing, right? The moment is not too big for you. And so, Carmel, it would not shock me at all that Carmel wins. But I am going to agree with you. I'm going with Arlington. And I just think that the Carmel crazies aren't going to be there, right? Due to the old COVID issue. Arlington is a veteran team. Some real nice veteran leadership. And I think Richie Finn is going to have a good game on both sides of the ball behind this offensive line. I just think it'll be a little too much, and the moment will be a little too big for this young Carmel team. I know I just said that sometimes youth, you don't feel that moment, but I think this time around they will feel a little bit. I think the game will be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I just think Carmel is too scrappy of a team to give up. But I do think there'll be some mistakes by the young football team that Arlington will take advantage of. I think they win. But I will say this. If Carmel does find a way to upset this team, I got to see how many times in history that a coach has won back-to-back Coach of the Years, because I think Todd Gay would put himself right back into that conversation if he could pull off this upset. But I'm going to go with Arlington. All right, everyone, that was our show. We want to thank everyone for tuning in for our 1AA preview show. I hope you guys have a fun, sports-filled week, and we'll can't wait to see you all very soon.